I hope you can hear me. I hope everything is good. Hello, everybody. This is Thomas, and as you can see, this is the first part of a very exciting series of webinars that we're going to see together, and is with respect to our project and production management tool in Impact. For those of you that don't know me, I have been using and implementing the software for almost 7 years now to many of our customers, and I have seen a lot of different ways of working with the precast process, and I'm very happy to be the host of this series of webinars that we're going to present in the following months, in these summery months of in here in Scandinavia at least, and hopefully after somebody can see those three parts. I have separated in three parts. I could have done it in two. A lot of times we do it in one part, but the whole point of this session is to actually do a training, do an online training together that I'm going to show you how you can start from zero, no model into the software, going all the way up to having a model into the software. And that, of course, follows the trainings in Revit that we had with Tessie, that she created basically a whole new model in Impact. Yes, these are my information. If you have any questions at the end of the webinar, I would completely appreciate it if you write me an email, and of course we can go through it together. I have not created an agenda today. I'm going to very roughly explain to you what we're going to see today. And what we're going to see today is what I call the very rough first planning of a project, of a precast project. We bid on a project in real life. What do we do? How do we represent that project in the software? And how we transition from a project that we bid on to an actually won project. So we will see that and how we transition in the system, how we can see, as you can see here, I have a nice graph here that we can actually see these workloads and capacities in our factory for maybe months or maybe years ahead, if that's how we work, and then also how we can rough plan the specific project now in reality when we're actually getting the elements into the system. Hopefully it will not take a crazy amount of time, but I want to be a little bit more technical. I want to explain to you a few things, and that's why it might take some time. So for the first part of this presentation, I'm going to show you a new tool we have not really shown you before. It's called Impact Tender, and it does this job here. I will explain exactly what it does. Again, I'm going to be a little bit technical, so I'm going to explain to you how it works, how it's set up, so you can do it and try it yourselves and see if it's a useful tool for you. For the second part of the training for today, for this presentation slash, I want to call it training, I will be following more or less the new training course that we have developed for you, and that can be found in our impact documentation. I have it right here. If you Google anywhere StruSoft Impact Wiki, you will get on top this page here. Many of you, especially our customers, know this. This is where we have a lot of information about all the software, and we have a lot of software in, especially in Impact. So basically, what you can see here in the end here, we have courses, and we have a course for Impact for Revit that it is under construction, almost there. We have a course Impact for AutoCAD, which is not really at all done. But what we have is a course called Impact Production, and that is completely finished. And if you read this introduction here, you can start the training. Everything is provided online. So if you have zero idea of what impact production is or how impact production works, with a simple mail to us or like a trial request, we can connect you to to our database that you will see now, our online and cloud database online, and you can actually follow this. You will get a project, you will get everything. Follow this plus this training that I'm going to show you now, and actually try it yourselves, everything that you will see in the next 3 webinars. So I just want to advertise it a little bit. It has been put a lot of work into it. If you are having no clue about impact, it might take a good 2 days to finish it, of course with breaks and stuff. If you know about impact and you have seen impact before and you have followed some of our webinars, then you can go through very nice and slowly and do your things and test a few things and see how things work and how you can adjust things in your way. I just want to name it that we have a new, I don't think we ever had production material, training material before. I have personally been involved in this project here, and I have done most of it myself, and I have put a lot of input and a lot of tips and a lot of tricks that I have learned through most of you, our customers, in the previous years. So I hope you can enjoy, and feel free to contact me if you have any problems with it. Now we are going to move to the actual software. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is what I already told you. It's called Impact Tender. I'll write here Tender. You need to install it from the StruSoft installer. And for the first time, I think, or maybe there has been mentioned before, but I will open for the first time in a long time at least, Impact Tender. And I will do my best to explain to you how Tender works. So let's start. When you open Impact Tender and you have not done any special settings, you will see that Impact Tender is separated into 3 tabs: the workload, the project quantities, and the settings. The first thing that we need to do is do the settings. The settings needs to be done once and then needs to be checked in the years to come compared to the capacities. First of all, a quick explanation of what we want to do. We want to see a rough workload of the elements that they are not in the system. In the previous years, when we wanted to rough plan elements or a lot of elements, you need to have the whole model ahead of time, and that's of course unrealistic. So here you can actually put quantities of element, only quantities of element, no real precast elements, and that will affect your capacity for the future, your tender capacity. And the tender capacity, or the rough capacity, then you can see it in a graph alongside your actual rough plan elements and the fine plan element and the elements that are already on your table. So those 3 different levels. So far in Resource Manager, we had the level of rough planned elements and fine planned elements. Now we're adding an extra layer to that, and that's the tender elements. The elements are not in the software, and we want to represent them somehow. And that's the workload graph we will end up at the end. There is a little bit of process in order to be able to work with it. So the first thing that we have to do is create a classification. And the classification means, how do I want to split my data? What is the reason what do I want to see on my graph, basically? This is the question that this classification asks you. Do you want to see your graph per your element products, per your element groups, or per element types? The easiest way to do it, especially if you are using Impact Design, for example, is to do it per element type. For those of you who are not using Impact Design and you are bringing in elements from Excel, this is something we will see also in a short while. Or for those of you that you are bringing in elements from other software, then sometimes you use those 2 fields, the group and the product, that allows you to kind of put the elements under the same roof, if you allow me that expression. So in this case now, because for me it is way easier and it is easier to understand it, I will use the element type as the classification. But of course, if you are not using impact design, that means that you are only bringing linked elements in most of the times, and that means that you will have to use element product or element group. So think a little bit about how you want to group your elements. Is it all of your sandwich walls, or is it, do you want to have, for example, a more detailed splitting of elements, meaning that sandwich walls with holes, or sandwich walls with openings, or sandwich walls without openings, for example, sandwich walls with doors, sandwich walls with windows, sandwich walls with big holes or small holes. So this is the level that we're talking about. So if you already classify your products and your elements into different specific product types, then you can use the product of the group to classify the elements. The second part, the group classification, one parameter or two parameters, is basically your KPI, your identificator, your like initial value that drives your factory. Is that the area, square meters? Is that your volume, the cubic? Is that your mass, tonnage, kilos? This is where you decide if you want to have like this is what you say here with one parameter, that in the end we will figure out what is your KPI. If you select two parameters, then in theory you are adding the two parameters for every element type or for every element product. That means that except for the area, which is your key factor calculating holocore square meter, then you add also how many of holocores you have. So you can add pieces or element count as we call it here. In this case, to make the example very easy, so I will use one parameter, but I think you get the point. The second part, which I have already created, it's your production groups. So your production groups needs to match the corresponding classification in a sense. So here is you can create whatever you want. You can create a new production group. We can call it, for example, we can call it Thomas, and we can give it this parameter. As I said, your KPI should be area, should be length, should be mass, should be piece, volume, time, or cost. Everything is possible. In this case, I'm not gonna do it. There is no point of me doing that. And that means that here, for example, in the beam and the column, I have added the parameter to be length. A lot of companies, they have the length as their KPI. The holocore, of course, is the area, and then something. Then we have the sandwich walls area, also slab area, stair pieces, wall and walls, and different type of walls. Again, this is a test database, it's not going to be perfect, and of course you cannot really delete things that you're using. So one person in my database is called walls, and another person create a new production group called it wall. That's also acceptable. So you create those one by one, you give them a name, and again, if you have a product that you call it WP01 and that affects your solid walls with windows on, then you should call this production group also WP01, so you know when you go to the mapping which name corresponds to which product. Important. The second thing you need to do is go to the capacity and put your weekly maximum capacity for this. Here you can see you have a start period and an end period. It is very easy. You see all of the headers here are blue, meaning that they are editable. So you can start from a period in time. Now it doesn't really matter because we're already ahead in time. We're already in May, almost May is over also, like we're almost in June, right? And then we go from a start period to an end period, and then you add a weekly capacity. The weekly capacity is of course in meters. So you say like I can create 150 meters of beam in a week in my factory, not a big factory, as you can see. But that's also like if we say a beam has an average of 3 meters, that's already 50 beams a week in a sense, which is not crazy. And then assign it to one factory. If you have multiple factories, like I have in my database, then you can create a new one and then find again the start date that you want to see, So I'll go to 2024, January, from the 1st of January, and then go all the way to May 25th, and say my weekly capacity for the smallest factory is 100, if that makes sense, and I will add this and say save. So now I have a capacity from week 6 to week 11, 150 meters of beam plus 100 meters of beam in my other factory. If you are not producing beams in the other factory, you do not have to add it. Again, a lot of possibilities. The more factories you have, the more things that you are juggling under the same roof, the more um, the more complicated you can make the tool, right? But I just want to show you that it is made for all type of companies, from a small factory to a company with like multiple factories. In the same way, we have done the column, we have added the hollow core and the sandwich, and everything has a weekly capacity for a specific factory in our database called StruSoft factory for the time to come. The last part of the settings, and that's the last part, that you need to come here in the mapping and map your, again, I'll go back here and say element type. So the left column here shows you element type, element group, or element product. In this case, I have selected element type. The element type is here, and I have to match my element type with my production group: beam, column, hollow core, wall, sandwich, slab, slab, and then I have some linked elements, and I map that as walls. You do that once, you don't have to do it again. The only thing you need to check once in a while, of course, if time passes by very fast and you have set your capacity by 2025 week 11 to be 150, you might need to come in again, create a new line, or edit this existing one and go further. If your capacity has not changed, go further to 100 to week 44, or and so on and so forth. If that's if your capacity is changed, and this is something, here for example we had 100, amazingly enough our factory grew, we got some extra molds, so we can create a new capacity from week 20 to week 50, that our new capacity in the factory for the whole 2026 also is 150 now for this factory called NOV1. And that means that we grow through 100 to 150. So production groups, mapping, and then we are good to go. That was the first part. There is only one thing I haven't shown you, and that's the minimum probability level. I cannot explain it to you before I show you how we create projects in here. So do the settings, try it yourselves. As far as I know, this requires a resource manager license. So if you are not using all of your resource manager licenses, or if you have the time to set it up by closing a resource manager down, then give it a try. The second part we need to set up is the project quantities. And I have already here a project that you can see, but I want to show you here from scratch how does it work. So I will create a new project here. I will select my standard and I will call this webinar. And you can give it also a title, a description, and you can even create a project group. A project group can be housing projects, or port, or industrial projects, or different types of projects that you have. Then you can classify every project group that you are, every tendering project group that you are creating, and see the graph according to this bigger group of projects in your database. In this case, I'm not going to do that. There is no really reason to do that. I'll call this project webinar and then maybe 01. You can give it a title and say like tender project for the webinar. I will say okay. And then I have a new project here. I mean, you peeped a little bit on what happens up here and what are the quantities and what is everything. So no further ado, how you create a project and how you add elements to it. You just add a new element here and you just say, internal walls, as you saw before, and you add you add a specific production group. In this case, I will add wall. The area comes automatically. You see it's also blocked out. And then the only thing I have to decide is how many of those do I have, how much area. So I have 8,000 square meters of wall. Then the color here, it can either go the same for the whole project, or you can create a specific color for a specific type of product. In my case, I decide here that I use a specific color per product. That means that I will know when I get internal walls on my housing projects, I will always use this color so I can have consistency in my graph, and I'll be able to see that properly in the graph. Then the calculation method and the probability. The probability is, of course, I'm bidding on a project. Of course, it's not 100% I'm getting the project, but in some cases I get, 70%. My feeling is 70%. In some other cases, my feeling is 90% or like 10%, because I know there are some competitors giving maybe better prices than I do. In this case here, you can add the probability of a product. Why there is a probability per product and not per whole project? That is because, of course, in some cases you get awarded only with the sandwich walls because you are the biggest provider of sandwich walls in the region, and some other people have also bid it for sandwich and holocore, and they got only the holocore, if that makes sense. So the probability goes per product, but usually here you keep the same probability. What you saw here in the settings is, of course, that the graph in the end can be shown with a minimum probability level of whatever is less than 75 can be filtered out, because I don't want to see in my graph things that are not coming in 100%. So sometimes I want to see my graph with everything, and sometimes I want to see my graph with the things that are more sure to come, so I can bid on more projects and press my capacity to the absolute maximum. Anyways, I will say save here. I will explain the calculation method in a split second, but as you understand, I have a quantity and I need to split that quantity weekly. The software works weekly here. So when I have to split that quantity weekly, the calculation method means that I have put the start date of the project and the end date of the project, and that gives me a production capacity every week. So the software calculates the pace of production by itself. The different calculation methods can be, you give it a start date, you give it a pace, and the software calculates the end date. You give it a pace and end date, the software automatically calculates the start date, and so on and so forth. Sometimes the pace and the end date, or the start and end date, is the best possible ways to calculate this in real life. There is also the manual option that gives you the freedom to do whatever you want. However, using the manual, making mistakes, splitting the quantity, the software will not warn you in a sense that, okay, the 8,000 are not splitted and you are used only 7,500 square meters instead. That will not, you will not get a warning when you split it manually. You will have to make sure that every week you have added all the capacities that you have to add it, split it between your factories in a way that it gives you the 8,000 here. Now, very quickly, we will do the rest of the projects. I will add the sandwich walls also, and then I will add the production group to be the sandwich area again. I will put 5,000, and I will give it another color. That color can be the green, and I will continue adding more and put here the holocore. And again, this is just an example. This is basically a project that I already have in my software, but this is a project that in theory we are going to produce now. This is the project that we are going to produce in the following webinars also in real life, right? So now we're at the tender stage where we do not know if we got the project or not. I will just fix everything at once. Beams, and then I will add the beam, and now I will just add my pieces to be like 2,000 meter and 3,000 meter of and then I'll just select the colors. I will just keep the colors to be whatever. I have used the green, right? So I'll just take this. Nice. I'll say save. That's perfect. So now I have made my products. Now I'm going to split the pages. So I will start the new page, and in every case, I want all these things to start from the 1st of September, and I know that my deadline is the 1st, or let's say the 3rd of December, right? I will assign them to a factory, and I get a weekly pace of 534 square meters of wall. I have to produce that in theory, right? I have to do this, and also, do I have the capacity to do this? Let's see. The same for sandwich walls. I will do the new pace. I will just, again, you can do that, of course, way further in time. Now, for me, it doesn't make any sense to go so far away in time because this database doesn't produce really anything. So it doesn't make really any sense. I will just add a new page again and say here again, I know it's a little bit boring, but it is also important to see in real life how much time does it take for a person who knows to set this up, right? So let's say save and then add again, same, 1st of September, and then we go also 1st of December, assign a factory, save, and so on and so forth. You know, this is a technical webinar, and again, this is something that I really want to spend, you know, a little bit more time on. We're still 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in, so I think we have plenty of time to do the rest of the jobs very quickly. Oh, yeah, that was not correct. So save, perfect. So now I have split my values. And what I was saying before is that actually I can change now. I have this value here, Holocaust. Let's take the Holocaust, right? And say like, okay, you know what? I'm going to change to manual. I'll save. So basically now I can, for these weeks, I can split the pace, and I can have all my pace right here. So for those weeks. So now what I can do, let's say now I'm just giving you an idea here, is that like for the even weeks, I can just go and add them to another factory. So now very quickly you get a trick on how to assign, you know, to split 1 week to this factory, the other week to this factory, 1 week to this factory, the other week to this factory. Say save, and that's the issues. Of course, the software says that they are not exactly the quantities. Of course, you cannot derive it properly, but again, this is square meters. So if you are missing 5 or 10 or 50 square meters, this is the whole point of the software. The software is not detailed as having the actual design or the actual level of holocore that we have in a real project. This is just so we can make sure that our capacity is split properly in the system. So we have that, and we did our job here. The one thing I want to show you also is that like now you want to create a new project and a new project, and you want to bring in more things. So instead of creating a new project all the time, what can you do here? You can use this project, or you can have one project as a big template. So you can have all of your product groups here. You can create more and more and more. And then the only thing you just have to do, say open project. I'll find this webinar 01, hopefully somewhere here. I will copy this. I will copy this project, and I will call it webinar 02, maybe. That's a project type preface. And again, I will it says you cannot copy files, of course, because there are no files in it, and the project has been successfully copied. And now I will just open the new project called webinar 02. So when I open this, I get everything, same colors, same calculation method, same probabilities. Everything comes in with just 0 quantities. So now the only thing I have to do is, for example, this project, I do not have columns at all. So I will just delete this product. That's fine. I don't have beams. I will delete the product, and the only thing I have to do is fill out the quantities and split the bases out for this. So the moment that you have something going on for you, like I didn't have now, or I had, but of course I won't show you from scratch how it works, then you are actually pretty much going into it, and you can quickly see the different how, like, you can very quickly bring in projects in this tool. So when I have my projects, then I go and I go to my last step, of course, workload. You know me, I always like to split things in steps, and I just have to select a production group in order to be able to see what I have done. So I'll take my wall. Remember, I had my walls, and then I just need to select the project. Here is not I need to select the projects I need to have inside, if that makes sense. So I'll take this project, the webinar one, the one that we created, and I will just press refresh. Hopefully something will show. So now finally we'll see what is that we are working on. And what we're working on here is basically this. You have a capacity line that we have set for walls to be 300 square meters a week. In this specific project, with the pace that we have been given for production, that already goes to 534. Of course, my capacity now, it doesn't matter. I can go in and change it because I can. It doesn't really, I'll put 750 and just change it so I can just be more easy for you to read the graph, right? And that shows me what is this and this and this. That is of course my how do you call it? That's of course my fine plant and my rough plant elements. But what fine and rough plant elements? These are only the walls in the system. This is basically my fine and rough plant data for these weeks, what I'm producing in the factory, or what I'm going to produce in the factory, only for element type wall. So basically, when we added the production group here, we also split the data in the left side. So now if I go and, for example, add the sandwich wall also, then both the sandwich and the normal walls will show in the workload. So you see, everything is raised, and now the capacity is raised also because we took the capacity also for the sandwich wall, and then we get a new graph. Take away the wall, for example, refresh, we see only the sandwich walls in the system, if that makes sense. Exactly. Plus, of course, the fine plant sandwich walls coming in into our factories. Take away this factory, then again, of course, I guess the capacity is the same, but I think you get the point. There is a possibility here. To combine, for example, elements like column and sandwich, or wall and column. You will see here now the column is getting yellow. Why is it getting yellow? Because the column actually does not have the same production, doesn't have the same KPI, doesn't have the same production group parameter as the other two that you can combine. So if you want to combine elements together in the end, you need to make sure that the production group parameter is the same for those. If it's not the same, then you can select the length, and then you can refresh the graph again very quickly and see what we have in column. And in column, we have this plus this. If I go to project quantities now and add, for example, for internal walls, I'll just very quickly add like 5,000 or something, right? And for the same period of time as before in another project, I will just add, let's go here to the 1st of September, and let's go, I'll just make it a little bit more tight. Go to, yeah, or maybe take it out to January. Assign it to StruSoft Factory 1, say save. So now from this project here, I can go to my workload, take out the wall now, and add the new project called webinar 2, I guess. Yeah. Okay, I'll just, you know what? It is very easy. These things happen. I will just close tender and open it again. That'll be very, very easy to do. And this is not, this is just sometimes, you know, I think I was in the graph already. I was loading it. So I guess to get the new project, I think it needs to just sometimes to restart. I'm pretty sure that here is the project. That's fine with me. And I'll just say refresh. And you will see the new capacity coming from both projects. And you see here, if you keep consistency for internal walls as blue, now you can see the blue and how this exceeding. If you change the color, then it will not look so, let's say, pretty in the face, I mean in the graph, right? And also if in the project quantities you decide, you know, you in order to keep track of that, you can just have a template and move on from that. So this is the tender. This is the tender, right? And let's see now, because I created a project here, a tender project, and now I'll just move on to the project manager directly. And I have created a project here that, of course, we are going to. But before we go to this, okay, fully finished, the design is finished, the world is perfect project, I want to actually go to and find the other project, the project that I just created. So I will open and I will just write this project called the webinar 1. Let's take this one and open it. What is the difference between a project like a tender project, or what I will show you now, it is called a pre-phase project, and a production project? So if I come to the properties, the project properties here, you will see that this project, has a type pre-phase. Most of the projects or all of the projects that you create in Impact, they usually production. When they are pre-phase, it doesn't really matter if I have elements in or if I have done anything here. The elements will not count against your fine on your rough planning. So when it is pre-phase, the only thing that counts is the elements that you have in tender. The moment that you are going to win the project, or you are going to get the project, you in theory come here, instead of creating a new project with the same name, because it's impossible, you keep the name, you keep the project, and the only thing you have to do is change the properties and change from pre-phase to production. That's fine. We go back. But when we are doing that in tender and we just refresh, the data from webinar 1 goes away. That means that there is not anymore in a pre-phase stage. Now we are going to move into actual elements coming in that are going to be rough planned, fine planned for the time being. And this is basically the transition between the fine and the rough plan. Now somebody will ask me, can we keep those elements? Can we do something to keep those elements? Yes, in theory you can, but the whole point is when you're actually getting design in, when you can actually design. When it is a pre-phase project, that's fine. But when you actually start putting planning dates into the project, then that's where the point where you have to change into a production project. Otherwise, it will not count against your capacity. If I want to keep the project, which is not something I propose, maybe you can find a better way, then you can actually copy it, or when you're creating a tender project, you can always put a T in the name on the project number plus a T or something, that we know it's a tender project, and then copy it in the project manager by again saying open, copy this, project, and then call it, something else, and then instead of a pre-phase, copy it as a production, and then you have both projects at the same time. But that, of course, as you understand, will show you a wrong workload, because then you can see here the split data, but you do not really know which project is coming from. But again, then you can play with the project groups and you create project groups for your different projects. But again, this is just suggestions. This is just things I have seen. And I can just tell you that of course there is a lot of ways of working, and the proposed one is the one I'm showing you. Of course, you can play with the project groups and actually, make project group for different projects, and then you can see only the specific project group, both the fine and the rough plan and the tender one. So you can actually keep also a little bit of a track of of your of your production. Remember, that will mean double capacity here, right? So we have to be careful. Anyways, now we're in the project manager. Now we're in a production project. Now we have come in, and now we're bringing in elements, real elements, because we need to plan. We need to do production planning, and for that, I have made a lot of videos. We have seen a lot of things, but now I'm gonna quickly show you all this from the rough plan. Now we're transitioning to the actual rough planning phase. How do we do that? First, I promise in the description, I'm going to bring in element marks with drawings. You create your building, you create your floors, you can make as many floors as you want, you can create as many buildings and floors as you want. This is all documented, this is all easy to do. And then you bring in your element marks. You say import a linked element mark, browse, and then find the template. You can find the template in Impact Wiki, you can find the template in the training, and import element marks elements with drawings and select the drawing folder. Hopefully this is going to work. I haven't tested it, so 225 elements with drawings are going to come in. These 225 elements basically represent our the elements that I have created in the system in tender. So now I'm having them as real elements here. And of course, this is where the rough planning. You see here, when I'm import linked elements, see, it's not a real model. It is just walls. The good thing is that I can import and open, for example, in PDF viewer, and hopefully a PDF is imported along with this wall. So hopefully, you never know. Let's see. Yes, and that's how a sandwich wall looks. Anyways, this is just an example drawing. You do not have to have this, but if you have created the drawings, if you have drawings, then you can put them in the system. Now, what is the process? So now I'm going to translate you this 3-floor building, let's say, into an actual building that we created into design. I think it's easier or a little bit more interesting to do the rough planning into a building that how do you call it, that makes more sense doing it. It looks a little bit better than actually doing it here, right? So I will open the other project, and I will keep this project for further planning. Later on part 2, we will plan both this project and the other project that I have made. There is this project I made, the web production part 1. Let's open it up. And that project, I have already done some planning, because of course we do not have the time to plan all 3 floors. I'll bore you to death, and that's not what I want here. I want you to get some good tips and tricks, and also follow a little bit the training process with me. So we go from step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So the first step, rough plan again, repeating tender. Second step, changing to a production project. Third step, getting our elements in, or as much elements as we can get. Fourth step, start the actual planning process. And the planning process, the project planning process, has a lot of different options and a lot of different possibilities. So 3-floor building, let's say that the elements, the 300 elements that I brought before, are those 388 elements in this project. And floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, on the project browser here, every element has its own properties that you can see here, and in this case have been designed through Impact Design, and that's why it looks very beautiful and very pretty. So I have no element colors in the process, but I'm going to use that, and if I don't, please remind me to do it by the end of the webinar. So the first thing I'm going to do, in this case, I will get the whole building and I will add a crane. How do we add cranes in the software? That's that's very important. The first thing you have to do is go to components and create a crane. Double click here. I have one. If I create a new one, you can give it a name. I always like to give my name when it is something, and then you just create basically a basic radius capacity and a specific color that shows you, how closer to the edge we're getting of like bringing the elements up. So it is a very simple one. If we investigate this one, so I don't have to create it again from scratch, we go to properties, and you can see here for every radius, it brings up a different capacity. The longer the radius, of course, the less the capacity that it can pick up. So what we do now, in order to be able to do that, we can add a crane. So we select our crane here, say crane, crane stage 1 or something, crane 1 in the project, and we activate the crane in the faces and the floors of the building. Very important. And we pick an insertion point. So the first insertion point is here. Let's add it here. And the second insertion point, I guess there is no need for a second crane. This is a very big crane, so I will try to say OK. And the next thing we are going to do is general load check. So if the position I have selected here is correct, and I get the general load check, then all of the elements, except for the ones from this side that they are red, are going to be picked up by this crane. So what I can do now is like I can add another crane, and I can say crane position 2. And according to my crane capacity, I can activate again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pick an insertion point, and now pick the insertion point to be from behind. And in that case, I can perform another general load check, and hopefully that also will cover the elements from this. It didn't, so that means that the position of this crane was actually far away. So I need to bring it closer to what I did. So I can just delete it or something and create a new one, or I can move it. I don't know why I deleted it, but you understand the point. You can just create a new one and pick the insertion point and move it a little bit closer. So hopefully that, unless these slabs are already way too big, I can take the general load check by this crane. Yes, and now everything is green. The element color has changed up here, and that shows you the crane check. And this is how you can add cranes in the system. Again, a very detailed description of how to do that is in the software. I will just say delete here. I don't want to see them. You can hide them. I prefer to delete them because sometimes they just pop out when I refresh or when I reload, and I just want them to be gone for now for the purposes of the webinar. But you can also use the function hide, and that will be very enough for you. We go back to using no colors, and I will be honest with you, I have done already floor 2 and floor 3. So I will start by doing floor 1 from scratch. The next part, erection planning. Why erection planning is important? Because erection planning helps us from the project management perspective, show an initial way of producing the elements, of building the project. Building the project means delivering the elements, meaning that it will help a lot having a specific term on the things that we want to add. So floor 1, let's go to floor 1, sandwich wall. And how does it work? You have to activate your modules, erection planning and simulation. Go to home and let's plan. Start number 1. The rest of the numbers are actually taken, so I will start from number 1 and make sure I take all the elements needed for adding to erection sequence. Now a lot of you think that this is a step that we can skip, but I will tell you my personal opinion. This is a step that we always need to do if we want to be efficient. We spend a little bit more time in the software, but that helps a lot down the way. When we add that here, we have add elements. They get a new erection sequence number from 1 to 30. I can continue, of course, with the walls, but I just want to show you here that you can also add remarks or specific cranes from the database directly to these elements. I will continue with the walls and try to take the walls also. What you can see me do here with this line that coming out is that I'm pressing actually Shift and Control, and that allows me to mark the elements in a specific way, because when I add them on the software here, I add them by selection order because I want them to be added the erection sequence by the way I'm selecting them. If I select the element mark, I'm not always assured that the element mark is the correct way to go, because a lot of times that doesn't mean we mark them the same way we want to erect them. So I prefer to do it this way. Columns, beams, let's unhide and let's try to do this as efficient as possible. Add elements. Then we go to hollow core. Let's see if we can take them at once. Add elements, and then we take the pre-stress slab. Elements, and then we take the form slab. I think you see we have a little bit of every element here, so it makes sense for everybody. For people with different type of production, see a little bit of everything. Add elements and say apply. And then when we say apply, we are giving basically the new erection sequence number to our elements. That of course will take a little bit of time, as there are 128 elements. And now go back to building 1. I want to make a quick check. Have I added all the elements and erection sequence number? I can of course see it here in the element mark, and see here I'm missing 1. Let's see here, I'm missing 1. This one has not been given an erection sequence number, but I can also see it like that. I can come here and say status, sorry, not status, erection. And if I go to floor 1, oh, you see here, there is one element seemingly has not been given an erection sequence number. So what can I do now, right? As I said, if I go all to my model, my whole building, how can I change that? And I really didn't do that on purpose, to be honest with you, but that's a very good example of things I want to show you. So let's say that this element needs to get this erection sequence number 36. So it should be between this WP4 and W. So it should be the number 41, right? So now I can take from this one all the way down, select all the elements to the end, and right click all of these under the element ID tabs, because in the element ID tabs, every element is unique in the system. I mean, for those of you who know the system knows exactly what I mean. And then I can just say change direction sequence. And it says from range 41 to 370. I can just raise by 1. Say apply, save. And now I have a spot between 40 and 42 basically, that I can just add my element in a new erection sequence. This, of course, when you have so many elements, like 350, it's not so many, of course, but it is a good amount, so you understand that that takes a little bit of time to change everything. So hopefully when I go back and see here, when I go and see, I have 40 and then 42. What do? Find this one, double click on it, 41, save, and the element is got a new erection sequence number. Very important, and you know now how you can actually see these things. I go back to floor 1 and see now that there is an erection sequence on this element. When I get the erection sequence, I find it very important for a lot of people. I have had the erection sequence, as I said, for second and third floor. I found it very important, and a lot of people do the same, to actually simulate the the erection sequence. And of course, I have used already 50 something minutes, so I would like to do it very quickly. I will show, and I will start showing you very quickly how the project looks and how it is, the erection sequence goes. And you can see very quickly everything is being simulated. You can take a video of that, you can take a screenshot recording, and you can send that to the partners that you are working with. I am very sure, because I have seen it myself, they are very, very impressed every single time that this happens. Yes. So I stopped it now because there is no really reason to go back and do that. I think you get the point, and I don't want to spend a lot more time of your time. So now we have the erection sequence, and the next part, of course, is add the plant dates. When we have the plant dates and we assign them to a specific factory, then what do we have? We have what we call the rough plant elements. So when I go back to tender, in theory, when I give them dates and assign them to a specific factory, then those elements will show here, hopefully as rough plant elements, especially the wall ones, if that makes sense. So let's see if we can assign some of the walls in these weeks and see if you know, the rough plan elements will show in the system. So let's go and add the element IDs again. You select this grid preset for rough planning, and that gives me the information that I want only for the dates. I start from the erection sequence, and then as we knew, the project starts, plant erection date starts from for the sandwich walls, planning, set date, and that should be the beginning of September. I will say the 3rd of September in real planning time. I continue with the rest of my sandwich walls according to the erection sequence again. See, that makes my life very easy. Planning, set date, let's say 2 days after, apply, and let's take also the solid walls at the same time. Planning, set date, I'll just move a little bit further, apply. And then I will just finish with this. Set date. I'll say save. I'll say save half the way because I want all the dates, all the dependencies to be fulfilled. And this is very important also, that every project has its own dependencies. And if we have project managers or people and we want to be conservative, when we get an erection date or a delivery date, then we can preset this information per project. Where can we set this information from? We can go to the properties and see that in the planning, we have used rough planning dependencies, yes, and then for every element type, we can use from erection date calculating back to get all the way to the drawing date. These are minus a working day, basically. So if you look at it from the 3rd, I want to have the plan drawing date or the plan production date from this period and so on and so forth. So yes, this is basically how it's looking. We can continue with the rest of the elements. I'll just go very quickly now and try to set some dates. These dates are going to be very important for the next webinar. I have already preset all the dates in a sense, but for the rest of the project, and I will do the one that I imported today for next time. Planning, set date. I'll just put the date to be the 17th, apply, and then I will continue to the rest of the slabs, and that will be here, almost stopping here, and that gives me a planning of a set date. Like that gives me a week of stoppage before I start the next one. next floor, and say save, and that basically shows me again all the dates need to be fulfilled, around 70, 80 elements here. I need to get 1, 2, 3, 4 extra dates, and that's how it works. Back to the model view. From erection, I'm going to select this one called rough planning. And now I just want to check if all of my elements have a rough planning. Another thing that you can rough plan, I will select only floor 1. So we filter here floor 1. I will also add a specific factory for these elements. So I will just right click, set planning, set production factory, and assign StruSoft factory 1, say apply. And again, this is the perfect size project to show you in real life how much time it takes for, so I don't spend a lot of your time, but also you understand how much time it takes to do this thing. So now all of my elements, every element has like rough planning, has erection, and is assigned to a factory. So this is my whole building 1, and everything is rough planned and ready to go. The last part I want to show you, now that we have the dates, and the dates spread again in real life from the 1st of or the 2nd of September all the way to November, December, as we did. What I want to show you, the last part for 3-4 minutes, is the new follow-up tab. So now that we have data in the system, now I would like to create filters that will show to me how I can use all this plant data that I have. Here I have already created a filter. I will just manage my filter, and I will just delete it and create it again from scratch. Yes, so I will just close it, so you can just okay, I didn't delete it apparently. Okay, I did. So let's start again. Let's call this filter, the PPD means like plan production date, but let's say plan production date 1. And then you can either make a personal or a shared one. I have also made a very nice video about it. No special characters allowed clearly, so don't add special characters like I did. And then you can select different projects that you want to combine. So if you have a project that is split up in 5 different sub-projects, then that's where you can add it. In this case, I have this web production 1, and of course I have made this webinar 01 also, which has no data at the moment, but it will get data for the next one. The next thing I want to see is either the factory or the element type, and I will just go for all element types. Want to see all element types, all factories. And here I create my activities. What is the activity I want here? Plan production date. So I will take away all the rest of the activities, and I want to see the plan production dates. Here I can also have things that are ready for production, or split them into different statuses. Basically, this is a status splitter. And here is what I want to sort my graph to be shown as. I want to sort by element type, and that's fairly it. And then maybe I want to see floor in my projects. When I say OK, so now I have a new filter, and I just need to make sure that the starting date is not September of 2021, but most likely it is August or something of 2024, and the end date is where I have the end of my project. So here you can see, if I open up the project in a Gantt chart, every element type and where I'm going to produce. And from out there, every element type, I have the different floors. So the sandwich floor 1 are going to be made in week 35, as we call it here in Scandinavia, and then week 39, and then week 42. The same will go for wall, floor 1, floor 2. So basically, you have a very structured data of all of your planning. All the things that you might gotten from MS projects or something, you get them also here, that you can actually see where I am. And the moment that the elements are following the status, the moment that some of the elements are like set to ready for production, then this color will also change um, in the during the process. And in the end, when you want, you can create also custom activities. Doesn't have to be only element types or floors. You can add cranes, you can add more things, or you can also compare things with, now of course it's two projects, so you cannot, but when you have only one project, you can use this compare button and try and compare what stage we were on the 20th or the 30th of May and what stage we were when it's the yeah, when it's the 30th of August in the project. So this is very important. And last thing I want to say here is you can actually export this to MS Project. This is the button that exports this to MS Project. I do not have MS Project, but I would really love to see you know the data in an actual project management and project planning tool, and this helps a lot. Again, this is for today. We exceeded the hour. That was really not my plan, but I'm very happy we did. I think I covered a lot of points. I went from the tender planning all the way to the rough planning and showing you a little bit of data. Give tender a try. Try to see how it looks, um, and I am pretty sure you will be very happy with it. It is really nice. Um, you can see here there are some rough planning elements. They are too little to be able to see the rough planned elements here underneath also. So make sure to make bigger quantities, and you will be able to see that. So that is for today. Thank you so much. I'll see you in a month with part 2, and then of course after the industry vacation we'll go with part 3. I think it's in August, but yeah, participate, or if you're seeing it not live later on, thank you so much. Follow and try to use the course, the production course. It is very useful, and I hope you can you have some good feedback to it, and I'm very happy if you send me a mail or give me a call to see these things together. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye. Hello everybody, and welcome to the part 2 of our series of webinars regarding impact project and production, logistics, and so on and so forth. My favorite part of the software, for those of you that know me well and have worked with me before. So that's why I decided I want to present to you this part of the software. As we said the previous time, we are following this 3-part webinar in order to be able to explain the process, the precast process through the eyes or through the procedures that we can follow inside the software. Anyways, thank you for joining. Thank you for taking your time here in the beginning of the summer, or let's say some people will say middle of summer, but you know, I know most of you were going to be on vacation from next week, so I'm happy that I can join you a little bit and discuss about impact production and so on. In this part 2, we are going to discuss specifically about the cash planning and all the things around your production factories and your production facilities, your element controls, how do we handle disorders and rejections in the system, and hopefully we're going to do it in a little bit different way than what you've been used to. And that's why I would love for you to stay along and see something different than a normal just presentation of our tables and our 3D production software. Before we go to the new things, let's maybe have a quick review of what we did the previous time. As you can see, the previous time we discussed here is the project manager, and this is the model that we were handling the previous time. And the special thing about this model is basically that it is just a normal structural model. Usually we use that for our presentations, and it has a lot of elements. It has like 3 floors, and I think what we did was we used our expertise in order to do the full rough planning on this element, meaning that we went here, we changed our in the element IDs, because every element ID is unique in the system, and we made, for example, the rough planning preset and grid preset, and then we filled out the dates. At least for the first floor, I had filled out the dates for the rest of the floors. We did a lot of we did the erection planning, the simulation module. We also saw the follow-up tabs, and of course, we discussed about also how we start the process, even when we do not have elements in the system using the tender module. I think that was very helpful for a lot of you, because we have not used that tool, or we have not shown that tool as much as the other tools that we have. Today, what we're going to do is not just the normal working in one project at the same time and taking the elements directly from the model view and putting them in beds and showing you a little bit how the CAS planner works. But what I would like to mostly show you, and it's important to me, is how you would work in real life. So if you are a production planner, if you are a person who is managing the production of the factory, then this is really the webinar for you to pay attention to, because here we're going to see that in a perfect world, if everything is filled out properly, like the things that we filled out, the dates, the erection sequence, and a lot of other things in the project, then how your life will become much easier by using our production planning module. I will do some explanations at the same time that some of you might find boring, but it is some tips and tricks that I have also added in the training material that we have uploaded on our wiki page. And basically what I'm going to do here is try to follow the training material as much as I can. I know it's a little bit difficult to follow in a small short amount of time the training material, but that's the process that I want to do. So today I'm going to introduce you to a very powerful tool that it is not called Project Manager, and it's called the Resource Manager. And the Resource Manager, it is a great tool because this is basically, it's our production database. It's the forefront of our production database. This is where we gather all the information. And for those of you who might not know and have seen only a few videos about the project manager, the CAS planner in the project manager and the CAS planner in the resource manager are the exact same thing. So if you are working at one, you do not have to work in the other. The other is updated automatically, and in the same way, you do not have to go back and forth, update things. It is the same CAS calendar. It is the same. It is the same tool. When we're in the resource manager, there are a lot of toppings here, a lot of themes up. The first one, if we are a production planner, we need to work in our planning. Why do we work in our planning? Because the first question that you always have to me when I show you the software is, yeah, you're showing us how to plan one project, but how can we plan multiple projects at the same time? And the answer is the resource manager. If you want to activate the CAS planner, it is activated up here, and then we have the planning tab. The planning tab has a lot of filters. If you are an old user of Impact, you might notice that it has way too many filters right now. And that's actually really, really good. You can see here we have expanded the filtering options in our planning tab to fulfill anybody needs. Even if, for example, an element, for example, has a remark or does not have a remark, or it has a product or it has a node, so we can actually filter things directly and manage to do everything exactly how we want them to happen, to filter the things. Usually, here what we say, you can bring in the project, select the projects from your database that you want to work on, but that's also not realistic because in theoretically the production planner should not really care about how many projects there are out there. He should care about the priorities and what project should he plan first. So what we're going to do here is basically activate some planned production dates, and that's from the 23rd of August up until the 28th of September. Pretty simple to do that. The date format, of course, goes according to the country that you're working on, and then all the elements in the database that they have this planned production date will show up in the system. All the other filters right now are basically telling us to give us all the possibilities. So I don't care if they're ready for production. I don't care what the project status is. Every element that has this planned production date in the system, if I press refresh here, will show up in our grid. Of course, what we're missing from the project manager, we're missing the model. Does a production planner need the model? He really doesn't. At least I do not know many production planners that they want or they care so much about the model. What they care about is different to each factory and the way that they are planning the elements. So here you can see I have shown 197 elements. Why do I show 197 elements? If I take this project up, you will see that I have two projects here. I have this project and I have this normal project that we have done. Why do I get only 167 elements out of the 450 or something that we have here in our summary? That is because of course we are filtering only the elements that they have this planned production date, and those are in theory the elements of the first floor. And I guess if we see here, and some of the second floor, because the elements of the first floor are only 129. As you can see, it is the same basically grid here on top as the one with the element IDs in the project manager. So as it is the same, then we can maybe apply the same filters. That is correct. You right click on it, you find a preset, and now I'm going to select the one called the Precast Planning. The Precast Planning has a different, it shows not as many, maybe I should, yeah, it doesn't show, it shows everything that it is relevant for the Precast Planner. That includes the length, the width, the height, and of course some definitions, product, element types, and so on and so forth. The second most important thing that we care right now as a production planner is the planned production date. The planned production date will go up here. And now I will see for the next month, which is of course, this is not how you should work. This is a little bit more how the software works. So you can get an idea. This is an idea of how a production planner should work throughout the different projects. And now we have the 26th of August, and I have 9 elements. Those 9 elements are sandwich walls, as far as I can see here on the element type. What does that mean? That means that I will go and open my Precast Planner. What is the Precast Planner now? Now that we figure out how to filter things and say, how to work in the system, in the software, what I'm going to do is explain a little bit about the Precast Planner. The Precast Planner has 3 main views. It has the calendar view, it has the detail view, and the list view. If I go to the calendar view, which is your main spreadsheet like, let's say, view, then I can, for example, double click on this table that I have here, and I will transfer to that date on the detail view. Usually, a person who works on the production planning, he has the calendar view as his main view or their main view, and they are working on the detail view in order to maximize maybe the space or move things around if the production is not fulfilled. At least that's how I've seen it being worked in the majority of our users. In the list view, what you get basically is really a list of your tables on a specific period of time. As you can see, I have a lot of tables now, and all the tables, if you play filter from the 10th, from the first of this production date of January 10th, 2023 up until today, will show in this list view in a sense. What do I get here? I get actually a quick overview for a specific period of time for my bets, and then I can very quickly check a few things or even delete something quickly and then do it from scratch again. Okay, so it is pretty simple, but and this is a view also that you can also select multiple tables and print also their corresponding reports when it comes to custom materials or labels or even cost planning reports. Let's go back to the calendar view. In the calendar view, even if we're in the calendar view, we have two views. We have the left view, which is a whole table, basically. Here we select a table, and we have the right view, which is where we select every element separately. This is very important because this is how we can manage this visibility, and it's important to know. Um, Needless to say that your cost planner can also be exported, can be undocked from this place here, and then you can just have it in a bigger screen so you can see things better, and you can use a second screen and of course use it as your real calendar. In this case now, because I have only one screen that I can show you at the same time, so I will try to be mindful and show you the cost planner in underneath the resource manager. All that you need to know, all the information that you know about the cost calendar can be shown, and you can read them also in the training material. Here I'm going to show you the basics, how you can just get started and get started using it. The most important thing to begin with is the calendar settings. The calendar settings shows you how many weeks ahead can you see, how many rows per cell you want to be able to see here, and you can go up to 12 weeks if that's a little tip that you can use. And also this cell rectangle, what should be the colors and the background colors, and also when something is occupied for element and something is occupied for maintenance and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things, and the footer contents and the right side of the table that shows you the total area. You can add the total length, also the total mass, the total volume. All these things are shown here on the right side of your daily summary content. I can say save. Now. We'll get one total length also column, and now that I am on it, I will try to go back into here. I'll just close it from here, and hopefully it will be docked on this back here. You can also move it to go back to the beginning if that's something that you want to do. Let's continue now, and let's take our first elements here. These are from, we do not really know which project are, because this is not something that we care, but if we want to activate also, we can show hide columns. I can find the one called project, show it, and of course bring it back in to the beginning. Pretty easy to do. And then when while I'm doing that, then I can see what project I have here right next to the factory in the division. All right, we select those elements. We know it's sandwich walls. We select our division and our factory. The production planner has been built according to the factory, and then it has the different divisions. If you have multiple factories, every factory has its own divisions, then you can plan also between different factories at the same time, or you can get an overview of all of the factories and the divisions at the same time. So here I will just select the elements. I will select the tables that I want to select, or in theory, I want to select only my till tables for those elements on this day, the 26th, and then I will just go in and press this magic button for me, auto bed management. Remember to press this multicast, so all the elements, no matter what, if they fit or not, are going to be cast. And when I say fit or not not on the table only, but on if there is enough space left, or if it's not, then they're moving to the next day. If of course they are not fitting in a table, they will not be added on the table and you will get an error. That's pretty obvious. Then you have a lot of possibilities of how you want to cast them. Sometimes you can use the erection sequence, sometimes you can use the width, the length, ascending or descending. What is another, and then say start. This is the simplest and most easy way to plan your elements. The elements will change status to 30, and you see that because there were not a lot of elements, only these and these tables were filled. As you see here, this table, we select the table here, and we select an element here. When an element is selected here, is also selected up in the planning module. The same goes here. Now what happens if I, for example, want to move an element without also knowing from this table to this table? How easy it is. You can actually select this element, take it away from here, and try to drop it only on this box. If you put it here, it will not work. You have to put it only in this box. There is not enough space for this element. So what happens here, it says 2.42 meters available, and then I have to find one of those elements that they are less length than 2.42, and there is none, which means that none of those is going to fit. However, what I can do is take this one and maybe take it and move it to my table number 4. That's also a possibility. I do that, and now table number 4 has this element. And how does it look in the date? As I said, double click, we saw the date and how the elements look. Now we can see the tables much easier and much better. Great. That's one way and an easy way to do it. Of course, there are multiple ways of working with it. And what are the multiple ways of working with it? Now I'm going to go to this, for example. I have, like, on the 30th, I have 19 elements. And now all of those are sandwich walls, right? Again. So I'll stay on my sandwich panels. However, what I'm going to do now is say, what are the other factors that I want in order to be able to plan my elements? And that is according sometimes to my length, width, or height, or a product, or an opening, or number of holes, number is like the group that it is important to us. So the more information you have filled out from your definitions, the more filtering options you will have. So you see here, like, I would like to take the elements that are below 4 meters. Let's say now I'm just because I'm looking at it, right? And plan them, all of them, in table 1 only, for the date that, of course, it is the how do you call it, that it is the 30th, right? Of course, you don't have to follow the dates. If you can plan it earlier, you can always plan it earlier, no problem. And then I will take my length, all of the elements that they are less than 4 meters, includes this, and let's say here, yeah, I think that's a good identificator. I will take this and the last two, and say that all of those elements, I want to plan them on tables 2 and 4, right? So I will go back to my CAS planner, go back to my calendar view, find the 30th, which is here, and plan them to tables 2 and 4. I will press uh, multicast and say start, and those elements hopefully will be planned in the table. This is an example again, right? So it is nothing to do with how do you call it, with this specific way of working. Now I can see that, of course, status now is an identificator, or I can take up the status and have the rest and say now I have like the 30 status means that they are planned for production. The 10 status means that they are not ready for production. So I can take those now, say those are my big, and put them on table 1, right? And now also on the 30th. Press multicast, I'll say start, and hopefully, maybe, I do not know, let's see, we will see very quickly. 5 elements were planned on this table. 5 elements were planned on this table. 5 elements were planned on this table, and 2 elements were planned on this table. That means that because I pressed multicast, the thing continued to follow. And now the plan production dates has changed, of course, but the plan erection dates have remained the same, which now gives us a good estimation to see how, if we will manage to do those elements on the right time. The most important thing I need you to see here is, of course, that we have changed the status automatically, and if I go to this date here, we will see that we have the 30th of August, and that's how it looks. Now, what happens if, something is going on and I need to plan something and I need this table empty this day and everything needs to move on to the day after, right? So there is, of course, a lot of possibilities here, and that means that we have this move space by shifting CAS forward. So you select the one that needs to be moved forward, all the tables will move forward. So everything moved to this. You want to go backwards again, select the empty space that you want to move backwards, maybe select the 29th because now it's empty, and use this button, fill space by move back. There is a lot of tips, there is a lot of right-click functionality here that you can right-click and say edit, for example, and move all your table to another, maybe even factory or maybe even another division or something. So it is in another date, of course, so it is very easy to edit things and move things. And the most easier thing is that actually when we have the visibility in the calendar in the detail view, so for example, I'll double click on that. Now I'm going to be on the 29th of August here. And now I say I want to move things around. And how can I do that? I can actually, when I can only see one day, I can actually come to the settings here and select the tables that I want to see and move the number of days to like 3, 4. It can go up to 15 days if I remember. I will take away the holidays so we don't have to see the holidays, and I will just say save. Now hopefully I will just be able to see the visual of every table of those 2 tables that I selected, of course, for the next 4 working days. So now I can actually, because I want this to be finished, maybe I can take one to move here where I have space, empty. That also will be moved there. And that's by just drag and dropping elements, of course, which is also a possibility, and then take that also and drag and dropping it. How else could I have done that? I could have also selected the whole table, edit, move, right click, edit, and then move the whole thing on this date on till table number 2. So there is always more than one ways of working in the system. Just this is just a clear example of how things work in the cash planner. You see here the calendar changes automatically, and needless to say that if I come back here and I'm on the same date and I just press refresh, and only I press refresh because the elements were not, of course, I haven't moved the project manager, haven't done anything with it. That means that, of course, I have to press refresh. If you open it again, or if another person is doing something else, then this is refreshing automatically. So you see, the calendar is exactly the same in the project manager as in the resource manager. Now, what I want you to see here is that the status, of course, is changed. Needless to say, we can also see it in the project. I don't even think we need to refresh. Maybe just a quick update here in the project to be able to see the color changes from the resource manager. So a person takes a look at this and knows exactly what elements are being placed on the tables at any time. Again, this is more a little bit of, let's say, training rather than it is a webinar where everything has to be perfect, or I have to show you, oh, you plan this and this and this and this. I want to do this more a little bit also as a training because I think it is very valuable for older customers and newer customers to get something out of this 3 series webinar. Another way of working, of course, before we move on to the more specifics of the cash planner and also see the mobile app, which is a very important part, is that I want to tell you here that there is this filter, very important also, like show me what is ready for production and what is not ready for production, right? And if I take the status away from here and maybe bring in the project up, because I have 2 different projects, as I said, and maybe move the project as the first one. So now I have the projects. If I say ready for production, I say yes here, and then I refresh, you will see that only the 30 elements that they are ready for production, I have set them to ready for production, and it's only from this project. If I put all yes or no, then all of the elements with those dates are showing in here. The ready for production is an important indicator, knowing that if the drawings are ready or not. What we have done, what we are actually we did is that we have a setting in the resource manager that it will not allow you to produce a table that the elements does not have a ready for production mark. That, of course, is a setting. It's not something that you have to do no matter what, but it's something that you can choose here from your settings and try to make sure that you have this how do you call it, the ready for production here. It's this one, and yes means that only elements that are ready for production can be cast plan on a cast unit, and that's of course something that you do not want most of the times to be able to do it, but of course in larger projects it gives you safety that people are not going to go and produce something that doesn't have an approved drawing before the drawing is approved, and that's why it is important, of course. So a new thing, just remember about it if you are interested in something like that. Enough with the ready for production. I planned a few elements. Again, I used only the sandwich panels. We can again try to take the element type as an indicator again. I do not know. Maybe we're already exceeding our times or something, but let's see here. I have a little bit different. This is sandwich, this is sandwich. Let's see here. All of it is sandwich walls. Maybe it's wall, wall, beam column, and now we have the 14 hollow cores. In the hollow core situation, I will just select all of them. Let's say Control and Shift, right? And then I'll just find my hollow core tables, go to the corresponding date, which is the 9th of September, and then select those two tables and say like multi-plan start, and then I plan my hollow cores. I guess they will only fill out one table, and there is a lot of available. You see here, again, this is now where you can have width length ascending. Now we can also change that and sort width length descending. So start from the thicker ones and then move down to the smallest one. So again, you can do that for all of type of your elements. I want to show you a few more cool things around this, so I would not want to waste time to plan everything. The planning for every element is the same. How you create your beds and how you see things is something that, of course, I have and we have explained thoroughly in our training material. Again, I will name it one more time about the training material. I will just go back to watching a number of days one, say save. So I don't want to be able to see all these dates now, and go back to my calendar view and find the corresponding date. Again, in reality, you will not play through the date so much. You will plan every day that comes further. You will plan a day further. Today you planned until the 28th. Tomorrow you will plan until the 1st of October, and then you will refresh, and then new elements will come up in your count. Now I have 227. Before I had 297, so I have 30 elements more, and that's how you will continue to be able to plan your elements further and further. So instead of waiting for a big schedule or whatever, you get the dates, you get the planning, and you are just doing your job. Enough with that. We move on with the next part, which is basically doing a few things here. So there is a difference here. Those elements coming from this project, they have a white line, and those elements here, they have a red line. What is that difference, and where is that difference coming from? That difference, of course, comes from the element controls. That means that the elements here, they have added element controls. If you see here in the right part, every element has its own element control, and this table here does not have elements that they have added element controls. You see, this is empty. How do I add element controls? There are multiple ways of adding element controls. Controls is, of course, something that it's extremely important in the process. And the easiest way for me to do it is basically come here, select the whole project or part of a project, and say right-click on the model view already, say add element controls. I have already done that for those elements. And the best part is that you can see I have a lot of different types of controls for every type of element. And then I can select which control I want to add for which element. I can select all of them, or I can just select, yeah, whatever. I can just select now all of them, it doesn't matter, and then say OK. And those elements, those controls will be added. That will take some time, depending on how many elements you have. If you have a whole building, like 500,000, 2,000 elements, and you do it for the whole building, you just have to wait maybe 2 minutes or something. until you get a beautiful message that it says success, element controls have been added to the selected elements. Before you get that message, the element controls have not yet been added. They are added ongoing. So it is important to be able to get this message before you are sure that the controls have been added. Going back to the resource manager, another way, of course, now I don't have for these elements, I don't want to go open the other project, right click, add the controls. I can select the whole table and of course find these add element controls. They are only sandwich walls, so I will select the sandwich, I will say OK, and also the controls will be added in a GIF. I will press refresh and hopefully in a few seconds the controls have been added to the system and they have gotten also this red line. The red line, as I said before, is controlled from the settings and it depends that the cell rectangle I'm using the control color. So now I want to do controls and I want to produce those elements and I want to move on with the process. Nice that we have fixed the calendar, but now how do I overview this process? The process is being overviewed by what we call and what we like to say the mobile app. The mobile app is the glue, is the communication between the people in the factory and the person, the production planner, seeing and overviewing the process, and that's something that it is very important. But before we can communicate to the mobile app, we have to print some things. And when I say print, the most important, you can print the custom materials, you can print the reinforcement, you can pre-print everything for the day to come. But in theory, let's say that tomorrow is the 26th, Monday the 26th, and then we have to prepare for tomorrow, for the production tomorrow. What do we do from the day before? So what do we do is basically we select the tables, the production for our whole or for the whole, for every division separately. We right click and we say print. What do we print? We print, in theory at least that's what I do, we print the element label. That is a very important thing to print. So now that will print all the labels for all the tables. Every element will get its own label with a QR code. That label is my label. It has nothing to do with your label. Every label can be adjusted and fitted to your label scanner and can look whatever you want it to look, and you have whatever logo you want it to have and whatever information from the element directly on the label. I will keep that. And the next one is I'm going to print the cast. What is the cast? The cast is more an information table for every table separately that has an element, of course, on top. So now it will print a cast with a QR code for the whole till table 1, for the whole till table 2, and the whole till table 4. So here, when I scan the QR code, I will get all the elements underneath the same table, and the same goes for this, and the same goes for this. If I scan the element label, I will of course get only this element on the mobile app. So I will keep those reports here. I will also move them a little bit on the way and try to see what can we get out of it. So the controls, of course, I can show you the controls and we can do the controls also here. We can perform controls directly in here, but that's not something that, of course, we want to do. We want to do the controls directly from the mobile app. So what I'm going to do now is try to connect my phone. I will just make a small refresh and hopefully I will say start broadcast and my phone will pop up right here. Perfect. And then here you can see my phone. I will try to get this to the left and then have this to the right. You can see here I have the phone and I will start printing out. I will start trying to take you press this button, and then we take the. All right, so we have all the elements under this table here, and that's very beautiful. That's one way of doing it. Again, because we want to go paperless and we want to bring elements from different tables without having to scan anything, that it is printed, we can actually press the search button and, for example, select a factory, go to the cast here, select the division. So I will just select the division about the sandwich panels, and then you need to select the date, which is the 30th or the 26th of August, right? And then select the cast unit. I will select the cast unit number 2. All shifts, say search, yes, and now I will also get those two elements in here. So I have this table and this table here. As you can see here, the ID and the names are correct. So these are the elements that I'm getting here, and these are the elements that I'm getting here. Perfect. So now I want to make some controls. You cannot make controls, of course, for multiple elements at the same time. So what you have to do is select one element, go into the information, and do controls directly in here in the element control. If there are no element controls added, you can add element controls by pressing this add button up there. In our case, there are controls, of course, being done, and there is like attachment. If there is an attachment, you can see it here. I have this checklist that I always want to see or something, and then you select this one, select, and go to, we have the symbol checks and the measure checks. You do not have to have measure checks, but you can always have at least one symbol check. Form work done, yes, yes, perfect, save. Now I'll go to the measure checks, and I will also fill that out. Of course, I can write information about the measure checks. This is not now realistic for me because I'm not doing any real control, so it doesn't really matter. Say save, go back, and now the pre-production control is open, meaning that I can say that I have done it. I'll say save. What have I not done is basically add pictures. So how can I add pictures? I can say inspect, and I can take pictures live from my formwork directly into the element. So I will take my setup here, use the photo, and then I can take another one, and you can even use your camera roll if that's something that you would like. So I have those two photos here, this and this, and I'll say save. Perfect. Now the photos are uploaded. Go back to the properties, back, and of course with a quick refresh here, and of course a quick refresh here, you will see that the status has changed to 35, that the element is ready, planned and approved, and with a little refresh here, you will see also that this element has changed control to green. Even though we have a control that it is green, the status here, the whole line is red. Why is it red? It will not get green until the whole production line gets a green control, meaning that we cannot start producing this table in a sense before our whole all the controls in that table before we start putting concrete is done, and that's why we separate into tables. So now, what is the difference? As you see here, I brought the whole cast. I brought the whole cast under this header. That if I select this header up here, it will basically select the whole table, and the same goes here, right? So I brought the whole cast. What is the difference between bringing the whole cast and then just scanning an element label? If I scan an element label, I can do that now for you, right? I can scan an element label. And now this element is the same as this element, right? It's exactly the same, but they have the same properties. And but this one has a header with a plan for production and a cast ID, and this one is standalone. So why do I want to bring the whole cast instead of bringing every element? That is because I want to, when I finish my controls, I want to select the header and change the whole status to produced. I'll say save. Now all the elements, and you will see it also here, they will get a new status, and that would be produced. You see the background also changed to orange, and therefore this element that it is standalone now, it has also changed to produce. In theory, what I don't care about here is getting every element by itself by scanning its own element label. This is a label to stick on it, and we will scan it further on in the process. When we do, for example, the post-production control, we can do that separately. But when it comes to production on a table, then I think it is more important to do that by, how do you call it, by selecting or printing out or bringing in the whole cast, because it makes it easier for us to do this produced. I can select this and I don't want it anymore, so I will just remove this one element. I will take it away. And in the same manner, for example, I don't want this, I can take this cast also, set it to produced. Of course, you can do the controls, right, and everything. And I will also play refresh. You see here, it follows, it continues. It's like a live organism. Every minute, every second, you will get more updates here coming directly from the factory, and that's why it is the biggest connector. Now, for example, I will want to take this away from the view. I can just press this and then press and delete it and remove those two elements. I'm not removing them from everywhere. I'm just removing them only from my view here on the mobile app. Okay, so don't worry to press this, because then you can scan the elements again and they can come in again, or you can find them by using this button. Every element, when I select it, it has this information button. If I go to the information, you will see all the information. With a cloud solution, you can also open the drawings, or a cloud storage solution, then you can open the drawings and you can do a lot of things, such as controls, of course, afterwards. Now I'm not going to go through the whole controls. I will just say save, and I will say that the post-production controls are done, and I will say refresh, and that means that the status can change automatically. I'm able to do that because I do not have a lock on my controls. Of course, for your employees, there will be a lock, meaning that they cannot set the element to done unless every step of the production control has been also performed. This is very important to understand, because of course now I show you how fast I can do it. I can see the time is passing by very quickly when you are speaking, and I'm speaking a lot, but it is important to understand those values and those information. Going back to the properties, right? I will go back. However, the next step, of course, is to move on, scan this label, scan a storage location code, or basically select this and put it on a storage location, right? And then assign it to storage location, and it will be set on storage. And this is basically where our webinar will finish today, in theory. But before we'll be able to do that, we have to see what happens when we get issues and when we get problems, because in reality, a lot of times we will get maybe a small crack or a few things that we need to review during the post-production control. So if I select and I go to the information, then I have what we call here issues. In the issues, you can either have a disorder or you can reject an element. How I would like to work, and that's really important to me, I am a person in the factory. Even though the crack or the problem is too big, then I need to create a disorder no matter what. So I will create a disorder, I will make a new one, and of course I will put a deadline to it. The month should be on the 1st of September. Somebody has to see the deadline. Okay. I will assign it to my friend Nikolai, for example, and then I will select section and select the reason. This is because of production, and then the molding was wrong, and there is another categories like cracking. You can add the description, make as better description as you want, like many cracks on top. Done. There is no solution yet, no cost, no issue, and created by me. Remember, you can add picture. You can come back here and say like, okay, I have this issue here. I will do that. I will use this photo. This is the issue. And I can come in and say create. Now I have an active disorder and the person that I want to be notified. I can, of course, creating a disorder from here. I need to make sure that he knows about the disorder. How do we know about the disorder? Is, of course, going either to the model or to our calendar here and see that there is something here on the right side. This is something that we have the disorder count. There is a possibility to send an email directly to the person involved, as long as you set up your mail server in the database. This is also something that we can help you with. So there is a disorder count, so I'll right click, I will come here, see there is a disorder, let's see what happened here. I will open my disorder, I will say edit, and now I will be able to look. Okay, this is the picture I just got. Many cracks on top. Now I can write a solution, whatever, and then send it back to the other person. Let's say that me it's Nikolai. Now I'm sending it back to Thomas, and I will just say, you know, active. Send it okay. Perfect. Okay, I will just come back here in my phone. Now it's assigned. Let's refresh the properties, of course. This is not something that happens in, you see, there is a yellow triangle here that there is an open disorder. Now I can just go in, check if anything happened, issues, disorder. It's assigned to Thomas Janssen. My name is not Thomas Janssen, but it doesn't matter. And then I will just make sure I'll take another picture and say that the issue is resolved. I will assign it back to Nikolai, and that's the process basically that we follow. So I will assign it back and say update. I'll take another picture and say that now it is a resolved issue. Going back to the properties, refreshing here, you see that the triangle changed the color to a green color, meaning that the disorder is resolved now. So I can just refresh, open. I don't think I need to refresh, to be honest with you, but let's say that I did. I can open the disorder count and say that disorders, edit, looking at the pictures, the new picture that they gave me, and say, okay, you know what, that's resolved, closed. We take it again when it comes. Now I have a closed disorder. I can also refresh this, and now it is a gray, a closed disorder added. Generally, this interaction is what we need and what we want in the system. Okay, where can I else can see disorders? If I go back to my project here, I have the element color status. I can just come here and see the one called disorders. So now I can look in if there is an element have a disorder. The element that, of course, we were working on now comes from another project, if you noticed. So this comes from this project, not from the other project. So the disorder, of course, is not visible in this project, which is the web production one. If we open this one and go back, that will take, of course, a little bit of time. you will be able to see the disorders, the element color for the disorders. The last part that we should discuss about is about the rejection, of course. And now, for example, this has a closed disorder. Now we can create a new disorder here, right? And I'll say information, and we can create an issue. And some people will say, I know it's broken, like I need to create a rejection. Usually, I do not condone creating rejections directly from the mobile app. So my situation, or what I will do, is basically create an issue as I did, assign it to the person responsible, and then the person will review it, and the disorder will then become a rejection. That means that, let's say here disorders, and then we can see if there is a disorder here. That's an element with a closed disorder, and that's an element with an overdue disorder. So you see here, that was the element that we were working with. And if we look at it, it is the sandwich wall. It is this sandwich wall that we were working, the element ID 848. Let's also make sure that we can see it here. Go back to the mobile app, sorry. It's the one, the 848 ID from this project. Great. So now that you believe me and I showed you that, the last thing I'm going to do is, of course, create a rejection. I will create a rejection for any element of those. It doesn't really matter. The only thing you need to remember that you have to create a rejection for an element that it is produced, not an element, of course, that it is planned. These elements are planned, these elements are produced. So I will select this element, and how does a rejection work? Reject an element. And the most important function that misses, and of course it's very well that it is missing, of course, from the mobile app, is the replan, the damaged element. Of course, you do the same way, you take the pictures, you add the reasons and the sub-reasons, but then you need to decide where to replan the element. If you do not decide that, then of course there might be a possibility you forget about it, even though it's impossible, because then the status will also change here, that it is back to, you know, not ready or ready for production, needs to be replanning, so you will get it refreshed in the system that you need to reproduce this element. But let's say that you forgot about it, then you will replan the damaged element, and you will select the next day, and you say OK, and now we create a rejection, and then we have this also rejected element. From here, you will see here it gets this rejection, gets this value here, and when I refresh here, hopefully it will say something about that this element is rejected, and you get this information. Pretty simple. It moves to the next day, then you go through the controls again from scratch. Everything needs to be from scratch. It's a new element. The controls are open. Everything is from scratch again, and then of course you make sure that you go through the whole process again. That happens every single day in your production. When this is finished and all of your elements are done, then you can select one element or multiple elements that you have scanned or something and assign them to a storage location. You can assign them to a storage location by pressing this scan button and then scanning a storage location code, which I do not have right now, or you can just select, press this location button and assign them to some of your storage locations on your storage. The status will change to 50, and now you have an element waiting for you on storage. Where can I see the storages? The storages is somewhere you can see here, of course, in the resource manager. As I said, the resource manager is an open database of all of our production elements, or produced elements, or elements that are about to be produced, with great visibility regarding your workload or your production and so on and so forth. But here also you gather all of your storage. Everything that has been produced up until the 30th of August will show here, and you will be able to see also if they have a storage location. You see a lot of produced elements in my database do not have a storage location. Some they have a storage location, and some of those are this element. And one of those elements with a storage location hopefully is this one, the one here that I can easily quickly find under storage location 5, and you can see the project that it's coming on, the element ID that is in, and of course all the information and the things that we need to know regarding this element. In theory, these are the most important topics that I wanted to cover for you. The controls are also gathered here. If I press refresh, I need to contain the periods. I need to make some periods, smaller periods of like I want to put from the 27th to the 30th of August, because if I put I risk to get a lot of waiting time in my control. Oh, sorry, I said do you use the no, and then I will say no. And now you see here I have selected the controls between these 3 days, and of course there are a lot of elements that we have added controls on for those 3 production dates. If that makes sense. Let's hope that it will not take that much time while waiting to get those controls. And the same works for the rejections and the disorders. The database there is it's the same. All of your rejections between a period of time, closed, open, you can decide, and the same for the rejections, and you can get a whole issue of what the issues are, categorize them, make sure that they will not happen again, and make sure that, if there is a problem with a table that produces all the time cracked elements, then you might understand that there is an issue there forever. And that's the power of, the front face of the database, of the gathering of information in the front face for everybody. Workload and production, of course, is just your normal rough plant elements and fine plant elements chart that you can group. We saw that, I think, a little bit the previous time, and of course the production is, of course, how many elements you have produced and what according to your KPI, of course. This is for me. This was very quickly what I want to show you. Let's maybe see if the controls are done. The controls were done, and you can see all the elements have controls. This is what I want to show you. More than an hour. Sorry for that. The last part is going to be the transfer planning. Not so much time, hopefully. Thank you so much for staying with me. I hope you can also see this webinar as a small little training. Take this and adjust it to your projects, or go into the training in Impact and make sure you get started by using this information regarding the production planning. Thank you so much. Have a nice summer, and I'll see you all. I think it's in the end of July. So I hope you have a nice and safe summer. I'll see you all soon. Bye bye. Hello everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Thomas, and I'm going to be the host of your webinar for the next half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, hopefully not that much. And as you can see from my slide here, we are going to talk about the last part of our production and project planning webinar that will cover the transport module. We are going to go deep into detail into the transfer module. We are going to discuss about how to do some logistics efficiently, and of course, everything that I'm going to show you, that doesn't mean that you have to use, or you do not have to use them in this specific order that I'm going to use. The software is pretty open, and you are very, very welcome to use this webinar as part of your workflow in your company. Yes, so now that the summer is over, the time is to go back now again to the software, and with no further ado, let's go back to our project. If you remember, I used to have a project here, pretty much, big building, a lot of different types of elements. We have done some production planning. I have, as you can see, I have produced some elements. We have done some controls on some elements. We have set the dates. We have done a lot of things through the mobile app. We created disorders. We create notifications and send mails to people, and we also manage our tender planning even before we had the project, and we did all of the project planning, as I say, and the production planning properly. However, what is left is the transfer planning. I know that a lot of you are doing the transfer planning before you are doing the cost planning, and that is absolutely fine. In this specific case, I'm following the order that I'm doing the production planning and then naturally move on to the transfer planning. In reality, I know that most of you will want to have at least an idea of the transfer planning, and you can see this webinar first before you go into the cost planning webinar. So there is not really a workflow issue here. If you want to do the transfer planning, do it first and then have that indication to use it as your driving factor regarding your production planning. So when it comes to transfer planning in Impact, and I will speak Impact language, I'm not going to speak your language or the language of the factory, I'm going to speak the language of the software. So in the language of the software, we have two things that we need to take care of: the transfer planning and the stack planning. The stack planning, of course, is planning your elements on a specific stack and then taking those stacks, adding them on to a vehicle that gives us what we call the transfer planning. So in order to have a transfer planning, we need to have a vehicle and a stack. In order to have the stack planning, we need to just define our different stack types. I have done a lot of presentations before about the stack types and the transport types and the vehicle types, and I don't see wasting your time today into looking into these specific things into detail. You are very welcome to look into the previous webinars about that, but for your case here, as you see in the settings in the resource manager, you can define a lot of different stack templates that they have a type of a rack. That means that they can be a double-sided rack, A-frame, an L-frame, a single-sided, or an in-loader, the ones that they slide into the in-loader type. And other than that, you can just have a horizontal and a vertical type. Horizontal for your slab or your floor elements, and vertical for your wall elements and your vertical basically elements, right? Then when you have the stack template, you need to create a transport vehicle. And a transport vehicle, of course, can be, in my case here, I have my in-loader, I have my trailer, and I have my truck, right? And they have the different dimensions about how much elements, max width and vehicles width and height and everything. And here down, you create the different pin axles and what is the dimensions of where you put the wheels and so on and so forth. This is again something that it is explained also in our wiki, but for sure you are very welcome to ask me more questions or look into a previous video after this webinar. And the last thing, in order to be able to do an automatic transport, or like an auto transport, it is called in the software, you need to have created your transport template. What is a transport template? It's a combination of a vehicle and a default stack. Simple as that. So when you have those three fields here filled out with detailed information, then you can decide if you want to use the 3D transport module, the one with the actual view of the track and your stack, or you don't want that, you think that is too complicated for you, and you want to use only the 2D transport module, where you still get your reports, you still get everything you need out of your transport, and print out the details that you want to print, but you will not be able to see that, how it will look in real life. And that is something that you control from the main settings, and it is controlled from the use visual stacker. In this case, I'm using yes, because this is what I would like to do. Yes, that is with the settings in the resource manager. Hopefully we are not going to use the resource manager so much today, because as you might well know, a transport is usually made per project. So when I create a project and when I have my elements in the project, then I want to create my transports. In my case here, I will take floor 1 and I will start a little bit with the vertical elements, right? So I will just filter out and put my sandwich walls. So when I have walls, vertical walls, I have decided the transport template, and transport template is a trailer and my A-frame, right? Let's say that is the example that I'm going to show you now. So what I'm going to do is create a transport automatically. There is no need for me to create a stack first and then add it on a vehicle. When that is necessary when we have slabs. The slabs weigh less, and that means that first I can create my stacks, and then according to the capacity of my vehicles, I can add 2 or 3 stacks maybe of slabs on top of only one vehicle. In an A-frame, the A-frame usually in most cases covers the whole length of your track, and that means that only one A-frame can be added, and that means that the restrictions that you have set according to weight, length, width, and so on the stack, that will also be the restrictions for adding on the vehicle. Let's go see how everything works. So in order to begin with, let's select only a few elements, so I don't want to confuse a lot. So I will select those elements. This color here, this orange color of the status, is not very nice looking. Now you will tell me the gray is not even better, but it's easier to see what I'm selecting here, at least with the gray color. So I will take those elements and I will use this function called auto transport. As you can see here, 3 elements plannable. Let's take 4 so we can make a better A-frame in a sense. So I will say auto transport here, and now I will create a loading order according to my erection sequence. Those elements have an erection sequence predefined, and that gives me the possibility of adding them in a stack order according to the erection sequence. What else is the possibilities? Erection sequence reversed, last one on the pile, first one delivered on site, and then we have selection order, of course. I will keep the erection sequence now. And then I have the different templates. I personally know that the trailer template goes with the A-frame, right? So I will do that. And then I will create a status preliminary here. The preliminary status is because I do not want the actual status of my elements be affected just because I have created a transport, right? So this is not what I would like to do. You can have price list, you can select price list, you use the element dates, meaning that this is going to be blocked and automatically be selected the date coming from the plant erection date and the plant delivery date. If you don't want that, then you can also manually do that. Of course, for efficiency and being faster, we can do that. We can also select different delivery addresses, contacts, if you have that in your database, and basically say OK. Let's say OK. And now we're going to see what happens when we create this transport. transport is done. And now you see here, I will also, you know what, I will take it out just like that. Let's see if that will be okay. And now you can see and manage the transport. So the transport has three views, right? The first view is the main transport view. Here on the right top, you have the actual elements and the net picking of the elements. And in the last, you have, of course, the 3D, the 3D view and how it looks in 3D. So in the transport, you can only select the full frame by itself, right? So you can move it and you cannot select, of course, every element one by one. When you're moving the frame, you can see the center of gravity is changing and the axle mass and how much is the pressure on the axles is also changing according to where you move your stack on top of it. If this is something that confuses you, if this is something that you don't want to see, you can take it down or you can close it as I showed you from and then just work on this level here. On this level here, you have every element separately under the A-frame. And on this level, you have the whole transport together. In the whole transport, you have a lot of information. As you see, blue, as we said, is something that we can manage and change easily. Black is something that we cannot edit unless, of course, we add more elements or delete elements and so on and so forth, right? The usage rate of my transport is 51, and then these elements have been produced, and you can add description, and you can also, use this new feature called here loading duration and unloading duration. This is also something you can do from the mobile app, of course, because that's where the real time comes in. So if you right click on your transport, you can see here that you can actually print your transport planning report and get a QR code that you can scan in and control your transport through the mobile app. Of course, this is something I'm also going to show you, and it's good to have this transport report for a little bit later when I'm going to use the transport app, right? So now I have the transport app, and now that I did the transport planning, I'm going to show you that, as I said before, a transport is a combination of a stack and a vehicle. Going back to the stack planning, I'm expecting when I refresh to be able to see a new stack that was created. That stack also is here, and here is basically where I can manipulate things per element. So for example, here you see this element and this element, or maybe let's say this and this, that instead of putting them next to each other, we might be actually to put them on the length. How can we do that? We have a function that when you select them here and you right click, we have this function called merge stack layer. This is the most important function that you can use, the merge stack layer. So let's use this merge stack layer, and then let's see what happens. And then those elements are placed on the same line on the stack. Selecting this element and this element and merging those also, in theory, they will also be placed there. And that's how easily you can make this look. You will not be able to fantasize that if you were only looking at the stack layer number and the stack sequence number 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you know that 1 and 2 are going to be unloaded first because that's the erection sequence, but number 14 and number 3 and 4 are going to be afterwards, and they are from this side. Yes, so it is easier for you to fantasize what element is going to unload first and what element is going to be unload second, and actually be able to do this type of manipulations. Now that we have done this, now we can go and actually go back to transport planning and try to be a little bit more fast, right? So I will take all of my walls here. I don't know how it will look. I will just create this erection sequence, use the dates, trailer, say OK, and just press OK and wait to see how much time it will take me to create a transport. Just so you know, when creating a transport, we have the two main factors for us right now is not the space of the A-frame, but it is actually how many elements, the max element count, and the max capacity, and the max load that our how do you call it, our stack or vehicle can take. In this case, you see, this is 77% of like 30 tons, and you can see here how the elements look. I can take up to 7. Here you can see also there are some more sandwich wall coming in, but that should not worry you, or you should not feel like that something is wrong here. Of course, you can leave it like that, or you can fix it by yourselves. There is also, of course, one here, and that's actually a very good thing that you can see, because now what I can do, it's actually very nice. I can select this element, I can cut it, and then I go to my first track. And because I know there is space enough, I can select my A-frame and say paste. And again, in theory, this should give me the element right here. That is as easy as that. Total mass is 1 ton. And why is 1 ton? That is because this is the own weight of the actual A-frame. Right, now I can delete my transport 6. I can say delete, and transport 6 is gone. And now this looks a little bit better at least, right? So, as I said before, I have 5 transports here for sandwich walls. I want to fix them. I want to make them look better. What am I going to do? I'm going to press refresh and come back here. Take number 2 and start fixing. What I usually say is that if it takes you more than 2 minutes to fix the view, then maybe it doesn't worth doing, because of course a lot of people in the factory, they do that for many years, and they might be experts in their field, and they might know that in reality it will not be exactly like that, but it might require some extra effort or something. So I will do those two, and as you see, the only thing I'm doing is basically putting the merge stack layer function, especially in the A-frames, and then I get something like that, right? And that looks pretty compact to me. And then I move on to the second one, and the only thing I have to do in the transfer planning, just for your, like, it still looks like that, right? I just have to press refresh, and then I'm getting into the transfer plan. Yes, that's basically it when it comes to walls. Another example, like just for not spending a lot of your time, another example would be to take those and make them into an inloader, right? I'll just take the inloader, use the same sequence as before, and I'll just try to show you that also how it looks. That created also again a few extra transports, transport number 6 and transport number 7 and transport number 8. So you see here, this is an inloader, and this is an inloader, and this is again, I guess, one element coming in. I will do the same function as before. I will cut it and then go back in and copy it in here, paste it in here. Yes, oh yeah, okay. It's all right. Now you will see that the mass will exit, but in theory, you can always have that 103. Now it's like 31.14 on a 30 tons. Sometimes you can actually, if you want, you can see the system and send some, but at least you will know about it. You will know about it. This is not something I propose you to do, but sometimes we know that the 30 or the 28 sometimes is a kind of a conservative capacity. We know we can carry maybe up to 35 tons, right? So when we go back to the stacks, I will refresh and I will get my stacks here. The one thing you need to remember about in loaders is that, for example, here, it looks pretty good, pretty neat. There is nothing to do. There is no merge the stack layer together because there is not really, a support here to put the elements together. You can split the inloader with different windbreaks or with different stoppages, or I don't remember how they are called. I think gables. Yes, they are called gables. Correct. So you can put the gables here, and then you can use the second part of your inloader like that. This is a very simple example of an inloader, so there is not really something that you can do. Other than that, you can just always take this and move it into space and do whatever you want. It is the same 3D moving functionality as before, and the sequence number will also be updated as long as you move it to another place. Yes, so this is the one way of working, creating transports for your vertical elements. Second way of working is, for example, I'll take my holocore, as I always love to do, and try to do um, a transport for my holocores, right? And in our case now, I want to do a stack for the holocore. So I want to create first a stack and select my horizontal stack. The dates are also coming automatically from the plant delivery dates. So I created my 2 stacks. Hopefully those are going to be enough. You see here? They look like that. So what can I do here in order to fix those before I even put them on the transport? I can see here there is one slab that it is not really correct on the side, so I will just move it up. Or you can move it up like that. I think this is, yeah, they are the same fast. You cannot really select it and put it all the way up. That will take more time in a sense to be able to figure that out. So it's better if you just move it up like that, and now it's up on the top of the pile. And for the other one, and again, these are just examples, so you can see the different ways of doing things. So in this case here, I have some half slabs here. So I will just merge the stack layer together. And then I will merge this and this together. And this is pretty lucky because this, I didn't select also, as you can see, the small ones here that they need more work. So I just did like that. And then of course the small one, you can move it again up. You can move it all the one layer up immediately. What happens is if you move them only in that little one, then it will of course take the place of one of those. We don't want that. We want it to move the whole layer up, and that's what we're doing here. Yeah, and now it's up. Those two are up. I do not know how much is the tonnage of them. Hopefully, no, it's like 19, it's like 20 and 22. I don't think they will be able to be placed on the same track, but in theory, what we like to do is select those two now, add them to an auto transport, create a preliminary auto transport, and then of course select what vehicle we would like to add them on. You see that the vehicle capacity now is 30 and those two together are like 44. So this is not going to be work in one. Now we'll use the element dates, say okay, see the total mass is 41.5 and that's not going to plan them in the same transport. You see transport number 8 and transport number 9. Go here, refresh, get my 2 different transports, pretty good. And in a special case where I would really like to combine those two, and I will show you just to show you that you can also cut the whole, if you select actually your load here, the whole stack, you can cut it and you can actually paste it here to your truck. So you need to select what you want to cut and then paste it where you want it to be cut. And then you see 138, 2 stacks, one here, and then you can actually put them pretty close to each other. So they are also gray, yes, and they look like that. So in a theoretical world, that of course the capacities are already predefined, then you can do things like that. So you can see it's pretty fast. There is not really something that you are missing. If I put the whole floor one here, you have all the transports and the situation where you can actually see which elements are going with which transport. So you can actually review your transfer planning directly from the model. There is also the same with your stack planning. And now that we're going to discuss about the different statuses of the transports, then you will also be able to see the transport status, for example, if something is called off and something is not called off. So this is how we work. Now some tips and tricks. This is the easy way. This is like, the commercial way. You have the elements, you put them in, you have some erection sequence, maybe not. Then we go in and say, how can we, for example, combine transports from other projects? Because sometimes I have heard that a lot. A lot of people get multiple big projects now, and sometimes they split them in different zones, in different things. So when I create a transport here, it is important to remember that there are some properties, right? So I will select this just as an example and go to the transport properties here. And you see, in the end, you can do that also when you create an auto transport, it's called this join transport. If I say yes, then I will have the possibility to show this specific transport directly into another project. So if I go and say here, I will not do it now because I have done that for another project. So I will come and use this filter here and say show join transports. Now here I have two transports, 126, and that maybe they are going to the same place, right? Or it's the project split into two, and there is this zone where I want to send some elements from one project to another. I know this is not very common or something, but a lot of times it can happen. So what can you do? Of course, you see the dates are off, so don't worry about it. Doesn't really matter. You can change the dates to match this. But what you can actually do is select. I will get the floor 2 element. Take this now, and I will try to let's call it drag and drop it from here and add it to this A-frame. One element has been loaded, and now I have an element from this project into this transport. And now I have, now I can mix and match things between projects. Anyways, this was just so I can show you that you can use joint transports and how this. A lot of times I have been asked this question: what is that joint transports and how can I use that? And this is how you can use the joint transports. The same, of course, will happen in your transport planning in the resource manager, right, where you can filter out things and get a lot of different transports from different models in. A new development that I have actually just done a tip of the week on, and I would really like to show you, is that now I select my elements, press auto transport, right, and select myself what template I want to use. Then sometimes, I have to select, the walls first, the whole across afterwards, and so on and so forth, right? So, but what I can do actually here is I can pre-select the templates for every element, what template I want to be added. Add the erection sequence. This is important to have the erection sequence predefined, and use this button called the use predefined templates. and then the software will do the job for you. Simple as that. It will follow an erection sequence. It will follow what template you want every element to be added on, and it will create transport numbers and transport all of your transports according to the erection sequence. So 1, 2, and 3 will go to the first transport, 3, 4, 5 will go to an in-loader template. In the second transport, 5, 6, 7 will go to a trailer, back to a trailer, and an A-frame with, how do you call it? With a new, yeah, with a new transport. So I will close that now, and I'm going to show you how it works. So as a reference, I will just select, as I did in my webinar, I will just select the sandwich walls of the second floor. I will go to the element IDs. Remember to make this configuration here to be your how do you call it, your transfer planning configuration. And then here is the magic field called the transport template. You can select it like that and say set transport template and then apply track, for example, for those. No, sorry, the track is not correct because the track is for horizontal elements. So I will take trailer, say apply, and then go here and say that planning, set transport template type in loader. I will continue doing that for planning trailer, and the last part is set transport template in loader, say apply, save. Remember, you need to have an erection sequence added to it. If you do not have an erection sequence, this will not work. So I will select all of my elements and go into a transfer planning. I will select use the predefined templates and select the erection sequence because this is what I'm using. If you want to select them in a specific order, that's also fine. But for me, it always works better with the erection sequence. Preliminary, okay. And in theory, that will give me transports. That was very, very quick. I had 10, 11, 12. I forgot to erase number 9. That's fine. Of course, now I have to manually change the transport number of each and every one of them. But now we start transport number 10. It's an in-loader. Transport number 11. It's an in-loader. Transport number 12. It's an in-loader. Oh, it's an A-frame. Transport number 13 is an in-loader. Transport number 14 is and then it goes and it goes and it takes accordingly. And you can see here that still elements are grouped on the same way. And this element, for example, and this element are on the same transport because they had the same template and the closest how do you call it? They were the ones the closest having this in-loader type of transport template, and that's why they were grouped like that. And of course, as I explained, this is because you have different types of elements, different types of sizes of tracks and stuff that you want to quickly do it without having to netpick and go. This will be basically difficult, or it will be more to say 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe you will not know that. But if you filter those elements here, the element IDs, according to the specific height, length, width, then you assign all of those elements that exceed a specific dimension to the corresponding template, and then you assign the others to the other templates that you have, and then you just select all of them and let the software do the rest for you. That's as easy as it can get. Yes. So this is another very cool function you can see very quickly we have created a lot of transports. The usage rate, of course, in a project like mine is not very relevant. For you, the usage rate would be very important, and that is also because you are doing real projects while I am not doing real projects. I can see that we're closing to the mark of the 40 minutes, and the last things I want to say is about, of course, the types of statuses and the types of, getting a transport, and the transport, gets called off, if that makes sense. So I will just take away the join transports now, so we don't have to see them and get confused. And now, for example, what usually happens is that you can just come in here, say call off, somebody calls off the transport, and you can just easily call off transport number 1. The status, of course, will change to call off, and you can print your how do you call it? You can print your delivery docket, your delivery ID, like the one I did here. Yes, like the one I did here, and then you can scan the QR code with the app. I like to show you the app, so I will try to do this one more time and try to show you the app. So first I will need to open my TeamViewer. I will need to connect to the TeamViewer. Allow, start the broadcast. And that is because I will show you my TeamViewer. And that is because I would like to also show you the new mobile app. We have done what we call the next generation app or something, the NG. Feel free to download it. I think you have been informed about it, and the interface is almost the same, right? There is not a lot of things to discuss about. This is your scanning. You scan, you take the information in, and then you have these elements. It has been called off, and you are going to select those elements. They do not have how do you call it? They do not have a storage location, and that's why some of them they are or the quality control is not performed properly. That's why the status has not changed. A lot of times I have said that you need, this one does not have any element control, so the status changed to being called off, of course, right? So in theory, if we'll be able to do all the controls here, the status will change to whatever we need to do. If we press up here and say, information, then you can see all the properties. And then in the status, you can see that I can actually, here set the date and time, loading, unloading, duration type, to transport checklist, that all of them are on this is a great one, all of them are on the track, and then change the status to on waybill. Set, that's it, go back, and the status is changed now to on waybill. They left the building. Perfect. Of course, as I said, if we did the controls, all of them will be on waybill. When the elements arrive, you scan your docket, the printed docket or not printed docket, depends on how you want to work, and you change the status, of course, to delivered, and that is here, and of course you can change it to delivered. If you have a delivered element, let's change, I cannot change it to delivered, of course, because the delivery date is not today, but if you have delivered, then remember that you can actually select the delivered element, go into the information, and set the status from this button, that of course it is locked now, to erect it if you also are responsible for the erection of your elements. And this is basically the process for going all the way from pre-phase production to the actual design of your elements, producing the elements, logistics planning, delivering, and all the way to erection. I think I showed you a lot of features. I think I showed you a lot of small things, a lot of tips and tricks. There is many more that I didn't, and of course, this is also a lot of things that you need to explore yourselves. If you want to follow exactly what I have done now and be able to work in the exact same project that I'm working in and try to follow step by step what I have shown in those 3 webinars, you are very, very welcome to come into our wiki page. And our wiki page is here. You just Google Impact Wiki StruSoft and will pop up here. And on the left side of the menu here, you have these courses, and there is one called Impact Production. If you start by the training by pressing here, I have shown that before, then you can follow all the steps that I did. I don't think the tender planning is included in the training, but that's something that you can always download and try yourselves. So yeah, so that's it. Follow this training, read what is written, and try to do the same things as I have done in those webinars, and hopefully you will be able to become experts very quickly and do all of your production and project planning in Impact. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure for hosting those 3 webinars. I hope you have a great return to your jobs and look forward for the autumn now and of course the Christmas period hopefully, and I wish you all a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.